What's up? What's up?
Welcome to another edition of the Yo What's Up podcast with High Yellow and Straight Black. We have Stephen Martin-Pinto running for District 7 Supervisor today. Stephen is a 10-year veteran of the San Francisco Fire Department, a former active duty United States Marine who has deployed in Iraq and Afghanistan. He was president of the Sunnydale Neighborhood Association. Sunnyside. President of the West Twin Peaks Central Council, and served on the Veterans Affairs Commission. His approach to politics is grounded in common sense, and everything I've read about, he has a no-nonsense approach to help getting the city of St. Francis back on its track. Stephen, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you.
Now, what we're going to do, Stephen, is we have a bunch of topics here, and I'm just going to pick one and then let you run with it.
Okay, sounds good.
One of the hot button issues going on right now is San Francisco school closings. And right now, they're saying that they want to close 10 elementary schools, 2 high schools, one of which is Sutro Elementary School, which me and my partner went.
We love that school.
Right? That's where we met. And we've been friends ever since,
Oh, nice.
And now they're trying to close down our school. San Francisco has a $1.3 billion budget, and it's supposedly going to have a $420 million deficit. Now, with the 1,000 districts around California, San Francisco spends one of the highest per student, $27,000. It's reported, $27,000 per student. The average in California is around $15,000. Now, Martin, they are saying that Matt Wayne he's going to step down.
Mm-hmm.
How did we get here?
Well, all of this is basically the end result of years and perhaps even decades of mismanagement of the school district. I'll give you a few examples. So we basically made it very, very unattractive for parents to keep their kids in public schools here in San Francisco. One of the biggest things I think that we did wrong was the excessive amount of time we kept schools closed after COVID. We were one of the longest, we kept schools closed pretty much longer than any other school district in, I think, the state and the country. So other school districts opened up much earlier. Private schools in San Francisco opened up about a year before public schools did. And as a result, kids that were attending public schools were forced to learn online, on distance. And that's no way to learn. They were missing out on valuable time in the classroom, asking questions, interacting with other students. And the school board refused to open up the schools because they were still worried about COVID, even though private schools have been operating open in San Francisco for about a year. And there was very, very few, if any, cases of COVID. So that was the first thing I think that it caused parents to take their kids out of public schools. And, as we all know, the more attendance that public schools have, the more funding they get. The other thing, too, was while the schools were closed, the school board was wasting its time renaming about 40 to 50 different schools, spending money, resources, time, not focused on the important things of getting kids, getting their back in the seats, back in attendance in schools. They also pursued other wasteful endeavors, such as the painting over of the Washington High mural. And I think you went to Washington High, didn't you?
I went to Washington. He went to Washington, and I was part of the alumni that pulled up some money to fight that.
Yeah. So these are all things. In addition to this, I'll say a few more. The fact that you, as a parent, you're not guaranteed admission into your nearest available public school. The fact that they, a few years ago, they pulled 8th grade algebra out of the curriculum for reasons of, I don't know, I guess it was for equity or whatever. But really, instead of bringing everybody down to a lower level, we should be giving kids, raising them up to higher level. if they have talents in math, science, arts, language, music, whatever it is, we should be nurturing that. And unfortunately, that's what the school district, the public school district here in San Francisco neglected. It neglected the rights of parents to give their kids the best education and opted for a whole litany of social justice causes, which, although noble, produced no results. It wasn't about the kids. It was about politics. And I'll say one final thing. I think traditionally, the school board has been a launching pad for career politicians in San Francisco. We've had several politicians who use the school board as a springboard for higher office. It's not about the kids. It's about their own political careers. It's totally selfish. And for a long time, we here in San Francisco didn't really notice it because things were, okay enough. But we came to a critical breaking point. We finally gotten there where we're facing school closures. And now, it's kind of our come to Jesus moment. This is the end result of years and decades of mismanagement, poor politics, and ultimately not looking out for the kids, not putting the kids number one. It's going to take a lot of work. I don't want the schools to close. I don't want that to happen. And but we have to, if we want the schools to remain open, we need to, one, redirect the funding away from wasteful programs that are producing null results.
Right.
And we have to get kids back into the school district. We have to make it attractive again for parents to send their kids to public schools.
Well, Steve, man, you sound frustrated for sure.
I am.
And, being a native San Francisco citizen, I like that about you because you can really talk how you feel. Now, that being said, when I looked at your background, you did a lot of hard work. You really showed up and performed on everything you've done. So obviously, the school district has not performed to your level. Now, I do disagree that computers, you had a statement about computers. I think computers are very valuable for students. I think we have to make sure our students are thinking about STEM, tech, and moving to the next level. There's a situation where every student should have a computer. Number two, there's no doubt you're correct about the mismanagement of the funds. There's no way that we can have a $1.3 billion scenario in a negative 438 million. And then there's accountability metrics. And so I think overall, we do need to audit and find out where this money was wasted, and we need to hold people accountable. And you're in District 7. Can
Correct.
you share with me some of the schools in District 7?
Absolutely.
And what would you like to see in District 7, in your backyard?
Okay, Miraloma School, Sunnyside Elementary, Hoover is in my district. I believe Robert Louis Stevenson is not in my district. That's in 4. Let's see, there's a number of private schools as well, but I think those are the main 3 ones. Soda is right in the border. Lowell is right in the border. I went to Lowell. So those are the schools that are right in and around District 7. To your point, though, I do agree that STEM computers is important. I just think that students learning, at home, learning from home through the computer versus in the school room itself with the computer, that's something different. So I think students need to be in school and they can have computers in school learning. And they could even take the computers home as well and learn.
So more social skills. You think that
Exactly.
we're losing the social skills of the student?
I think so.
And because they're being so entitled to a screen and so forth, that they're not interacting with the diversity that we offer here in San Francisco, which is a good start for anyone.
I think so.
Because you speak several different languages and you traveled all over the world. So you do understand that this world is diverse and has a lot to offer if you get to know someone.
One of the biggest lessons I learned in the military was when you're in somebody else's country, like I was in Georgia for 8 months, and I took the time to learn about the culture and even learn Georgian, which is a very difficult language. But I worked a lot with interpreters and translators on my spare time. And actually, we had a lot of spare time because we weren't that busy. And I said, teach me Georgian. And I began to learn simple words, make sentences. And by the end of my time there in Georgia, I was actually, I didn't need a translator. I could get around town. I could get a taxi, go wherever I wanted to go. And I think just the fact that when you talk to people in their own terms, in their own language, it really makes a connection with them. A lot is lost through the interpreter, but if you can go to a country, talk to them in their own language, in their own culture, in their own terms, you really start to kind of bond with them. And I was there as a foreign military advisor and trainer, so we were there to kind of help guide the Georgian Army in tactics, how to communicate, how to shoot, move, and communicate. And when I was one of the few officers over there who actually took the time to learn the language, and I quickly became, one of their favorites because I began to earn a trust that nobody else really did. And that's one lesson I took away from my time in the military is.
Now, one thing I want to follow up on, and I think it's important to bring up, is San Francisco's lost 5,000 students. Okay, now they lost 5,000 students, but they kept the same administration, same amount of teachers. If you lose 5,000 students, you have to cut staffing because you don't have those students to teach, but you're still paying those salaries. They didn't do that. So one of the proposals that Matt Wayne, who's the superintendent who's about to resign, is saying, well, let's do a 10% reduction in staff of unfilled positions. These positions aren't even filled. So let's just cut that out of the budget. And then let's take that 5,000 students that aren't in San Francisco anymore and cut those positions, which to me makes sense. But also, and the Tenderloin has the most families in San Francisco. So that means the most students.
Right.
But the Tenderloin, out of all the areas in San Francisco, is the most untenable. It's the place that I wouldn't want to raise a family. So people are leaving. If I come outside and I see drugs, alcohol, and the things that go on in the Tenderloin, of course I don't want my family to raise a family there. Of course I'm going to move them out if I can afford it somewhere else. So I think San Francisco makes it's a non-friendly to families. It's a place that's not friendly to families. It has been for quite a while. And I've been saying it to every politician that it's not a family-friendly place. And the results are here. You can go outside and see it. When we were growing up, we didn't see people with their pants down. I was on Fillmore Street going to the ice cream store that's on Fillmore in Sacramento. There was a guy stroking himself naked in the broad daylight. And I'm with my kids. And so I tell them to stay. And then I go up to him and I say, pull your pants up and walk on down that street. And he looked at me, and it was kind of like during the mask, everybody had their mask. And I say, hey, you don't have a mask on. And that made him put his pants up and walk away. Not the fact that he was stroking himself naked in broad daylight during children getting out of school, but the fact that he didn't have a mask on.
Well, you have some mental illness. There was also a law at one time where some of the citizens who are for nudity wanted to walk around a school, and we fought hard to make sure that didn't happen. But getting back to the school scenario, okay, and the school system, I wouldn't trust any politician right now to give me any advice on what to do with the school. I would have to bring in some very good consultants or people who have performed well in their school district and get them to advise and go through exactly what's the best approach on how to clean up, because that's a lot of money. And then also we forgot that a lot of the kids we have now also sanctuary kids. We also have a lot of kids who are coming in from all over the world, okay? And they're not accounted for. And there's also a lot of costs being spent, a lot of wasteful costs being spent. And then at the same time, we're not focusing on all these tech companies around here. We're not holding them accountable to contribute to the schools, or also having more after-school programs, a lot of things, tutors, things that we used to have. We don't even have driver's ed anymore, I don't think, in school.
Wow.
Okay.
I know that.
We
So,
don't.
and so there's a lot of things that we need to get back to. And I do agree with you, some of that, back to some of the curriculum that has shown success, right? But also with advanced curriculum and making sure we bring back the algebra and so forth like that.
Absolutely,
so,
yeah.
So in my opinion, I wouldn't trust any politician right now to handle this mess. I will have to consult.
Well, let's get right into another hot button topic, especially in District 7, the SFMTA and what is going on with that mess where you can't turn left in West Portal. You got to turn, and now everyone's doing U-turns. It's a total mess, and they've created a mess when there wasn't a mess. What's your solution, and what's going on over there?
Well, I think one of the biggest problems of SFMTA is, well, first of all, let's go back a little bit of history of SFMTA. When was it created? It was created back in, I think, 1999 by voter mandate. It was meant to consolidate all the transportation-related agencies, MUNI, Department of Parking and Traffic, the agency that oversaw taxis and the taxi medallions and all that, into one agency. And it was meant to kind of streamline all the services under one umbrella, make it more efficient and smooth. But unfortunately, I think we lost a little bit of customer service when we did that. And I'll give you an example. So back in the 50s, 60s, 70s.
So I don't want a history lesson.
Right.
I want to know what you're going to do with what's going on in West Portal right now today, and that's affecting the citizens of San Francisco in that district with not being able to turn left and all these people having to do U-turns.
Okay.
So let's talk about that, and then maybe we can circle back to the history. But people want to know what you're going to do about that.
Cover your district.
Oh,
what's the main ones?
I think the main ones is a 4323, the K, L, and M go through my district.
Okay.
49 ends up in my district. I think I said 36. 35 touches my district.
And the L is probably the busiest in the city. L or the T, one of them.
Actually, the N line actually also goes through my district.
Right.
The N line is the busiest light rail line in San Francisco.
Okay.
Always packed. Always packed. I think the M is the second busiest.
Okay.
So, I think what's going on right now in SFMTA is we have a bunch of ideology. We have top-down planning. Rather than meet the customer, the voter, the resident, where they are,
right.
SFMT has these great ideas that they're trying to sell to the public. And no matter what, and I've been to a few SFMTA commission meetings or supervisor meetings, the SFMTA already has a plan. They're going to implement it regardless of what the feedback is. However, they have to have a public meeting about it. But public comment is only taken as a formality. The plan has already been approved unofficially.
Now that's wrong, isn't it?
That's absolutely wrong. I think one of the biggest proposals that I have, which is a radical proposal, but I think it needs to be done, is we need to break up SFMTA back into its component organizations of MUNI and Department of Parking and Traffic. And the reason why I say that is this, because people always talk about, we need more funding for transit. We have Prop L, which is going to tax the Waymos and the Ubers and all that to fund transit. What it really is saying is not fund transit necessarily, but fund the SFMTA. So this big bloated organization with thousands and thousands of workers is going to eat up all that tax revenue, and very little of it is actually going to trickle down to what I think is a core function, which should be the core function of SFMTA, and that's MUNI. And I'll tell you one more thing too. What's wrong with the current situation is MUNI itself, the infrastructure, is neglected. Did you know that when a train enters a tunnel, such as the Twin Peaks Tunnel, it goes under what's called automatic train control, okay? Which means the computer, which is located at the Transit Management Control Center, controls the train. The driver no longer controls the train. It's controlled by computer. that computer operating system is run off of antiquated floppy disk software, okay, installed in the late 90s by a contractor named Booz Allen Hamilton. Okay, this has not been updated in 25 years. Now, we've known that this has been a problem for a long time, but yet what has the past heads of SFMTA done about it? Jeff Tumlin, Ed Riskin, nothing. And they say, well, we're working on it. We got a plan in place. It's going to take 5 years. What I've talked to people who work in the tech industry, and the floppy disk software is very vulnerable. It's prone to crashing and failing, and if the floppy disk gets erased or demagnetized or whatever, we're toast.
So I'm going to get tough on you.
Yes.
And thank you for giving us a little history lesson, because that's what you did. You gave us a history lesson, but you didn't answer the question. And the question was, in West Portal, you can't turn left.
Yes.
And now everyone's doing an illegal U-turn.
Yeah.
Why is that, and how are we going to fix it?
That's one issue, Sherman.
Yeah, but that's the issue that we're talking about.
But I get it. But I'm just saying
that's the issue that people are talking about right now. The San Francisco voters.
People are acting really spoiled right now. Let me tell you, I was in L.A. and I'm in a couple other cities. We have the
You're letting him off the hook.
No,
you're letting him off the hook, and he's not going to answer the question if you don't let him.
I'll let him answer it because you asked it. But I just wanted to say that we can't beat up a system that is better than any system in the world.
Okay. Wait, slow down.
In my opinion,
because slow down. It's not better than any place in Europe. It's not better than any place in Europe. It's not better than any place in Europe.
Okay, because you go anywhere.
It's not even better in New York.
You go to L.A.
It's not better in Chicago either. It's not better in New York.
I think it's as good as is in New York. You know what? It could be as better. But New York goes all night. They got the owl going. Yeah, because if people stay all night, we're kind of sleepy. Yeah.
But let's let him answer this question.
Yes, sir.
Because it was in the paper today.
I guess the paper was bored.
About it was in the paper today.
Yeah.
Especially in his district.
Matter of fact, we don't even have that many papers anymore.
No, we don't. But it was in his district they were talking about.
Well, look, here's the thing, is all these fixes that they implemented in West Portal, none of it had to do with the accident.
Right.
And even by SFMTA's own admission, none of these fixes would have prevented the accident. What happened was a huge tragedy, but it's not like the rule, it's the exception. What happened was, this never should have happened. The reason why it never should have happened was because the family that was waiting there at the bus stop at the corner of Lenox and Ulloa, they were waiting to go to the zoo. Right. Meaning they were able to use the El Terravel. But the El Terravel at that point was not a light rail line, it was a bus. The El Terravel has been under construction. It just got finished a few weeks ago and opened up again, back up. It's been under construction for 5 years.
How many years is it over?
Like at least a few, like several. I'll give you a little perspective.
Okay.
When they built the El Terravel in 1917, it was completed in 1922. Okay, it took longer to rebuild the El Terravel than it did to build it in the first place. Okay, we're talking 2 miles.
That's crazy.
Well,
we're talking 2 miles of track.
That's crazy.
Well, it's not hard to do.
Right.
This thing should have been done fast. It should have been done. I know there's some people who would complain about it, but it should have been done like 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. Rip the Band-Aid off, get it done.
I agree.
And then let it open up back for service. If the El Terravel had been done in a timely manner, that family would never have been killed, and none of these fixes would ever have been implemented.
Now, that's a good point. That's a really good point.
And Sherman, can you ask him? One thing I want our audience to know is a little bit more about District 7 and where does it cover? Where does it start?
I know Stonetown's part of it.
And because I have a couple of questions about the area, because I am a native too. But go ahead. What does District 7 cover?
District 7 covers Midtown Terrace, Forest Knolls, Westwood Park, Westwood Highlands, Sunnyside, Golden Gate Heights, Inner Sunset, Park Merced, Ingleside Terrace, Balboa Terrace. Did I say West Portal and Forest Hill? Forest Hill Extension, Marilima Park.
I
can't think. I think that's, and a bit of Twin Peaks.
So is City College in that district?
Yes, it is.
So City College, State.
State is in it, yes.
Stonestown. So it's a big district. That's a big district. All the way to West Portal. That's a big.
And Lake Merced as well.
Is that one of the big districts? Is that the biggest district?
Geographically, it is the biggest district in San Francisco. The reason because it contains a lot of parkland.
Yeah. Now, what's been the biggest complaint to your office about District 7, and how would you want to address it?
So, I've knocked on thousands of doors all over District 7.
Which I commend you for, because a lot of these politicians, when you open the door, it's somebody else, like one of their minions.
Yes.
This man is going door to door himself. You gotta love the hustle. I love that.
Hey,
I love that.
Boots on the ground.
And there's one district which I got to give a shout out to, or neighborhood which I got to give a shout out to, which often gets overlooked, and that's Merced Extension Triangle neighborhood.
Okay.
The H Mart. People don't know about it. They don't think about it. It's the last stop when you're leaving San Francisco on Juniper Serra heading towards Serramonte. You blink and you miss it, but it's a tight knit. I love it, and I've knocked on lots of doors there. But to answer your question, the biggest issue overall in District 7 that I've heard time and time again is public safety, crime. Every district has their own version of public safety concerns. Like, for example, if you go to Park Merced, it's RVs and squatters.
Right.
That's a huge issue there. If you go to West Portal, there's a lot of homeless and people like taking shoplifting,
robberies.
In fact, the owner of Shaw's on West Portal, Deanna, she got attacked by a person. She had a concussion. Okay. I've talked to her personally. You go to Midtown Terrace and Forest Knolls. There's break-ins there too. There's sideshows, and even when they kept Twin Peaks closed for a long time during COVID, there's people partying. Jumping on people's roofs, littering, doing drugs, all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
Every district has its own public safety concern, but overall, it's public safety, no matter where you go in District 7. And, my incumbent opponent, Myrna Melgar, she not only wanted to defund the police when it was popular, she said, I'm going to outdo them all and say, I'm going to abolish the police. Bad idea. We need public safety. We need police officers. I'm always a fan of what can we do better? How can we improve our public service? Because I look at, Sherman, we're both into the business of customer service, and the police are as well, the sheriffs, the nurses. We're all in the business of public service. So we're always looking for ways we could serve the public better. But to say that the whole institution of policing is inherently wrong and we should abolish it is just absurd. It's nuts. And
she said that on record?
Yes. In 2020, Myrna Melgar said that I not only support the defunding of the police, but I support the abolishment of the police. It's on record. It's out
so
there.
Is she saying for everyone to have their own gun in the house, I guess?
I don't know what she's saying, but she said it.
So I don't know how she got elected. And
ranked choice voting.
And two, when you listen to her, she sounds like an older Valley girl. When she talks, she sounds like a Valley girl. Like, she sounds like, I can't believe I don't know how she got in, man. Yeah. And the only time you see her is now. You've never seen her before. Like, no one knew who really she was.
She doesn't want to come out.
But now that she's running for election, she's showing up at places.
Yes, but she don't want to go out of her house because of all these issues we're hearing about.
But now that we're talking about the police, there's 1,866 members of the San Francisco Police Department. Reportedly, we're about 400 members short. And a comparable city, which is Boston, they have 2,015 police officers. So it's hard, and I keep telling people, it's hard to tell people that they're doing a horrible job. It's hard to tell people you want to defund them and then to get people to join that association. Like, if you go out denigrating them, and they always in San Francisco for the last, I'd say 10 years, denigrate the police officers. So it's hard to now go out and say, we love you, and recruit them. And even the ones that you have, it's hard to get them to do something and do their job if you're always putting them down.
So here, well, hold on. Now, we don't need a bunch of whiners as police officers. Okay, if their feelings are getting hurt because a person is not happy with some of the aggressive behavior behind the shield. This is the Wild Wild West, okay? And I remind people in California, we had marshals who had people riding in 8, 10 deep, just tearing up towns, and they still kept their badge with honor. The point is, we're just looking for honorable men to serve and protect.
And women.
And if anything, we should address what he said. These people are scared of getting robbed. Where are the police? Why aren't they doing walks anymore? Why aren't they going to schools and being more engaged in the community? Why aren't they more focused on showing them that they care, and in the locker room getting rid of the bad apples?
Stephen,
it's also a responsibility for them as a tribe,
right,
as them as a organization to clean up their bad apples.
Yeah.
Okay.
I want to say something about this because what you're hitting on is some great points. But I remember seeing an interview with former LA County Sheriff Alex Villanueva. And he gave a speech on law enforcement and attitudes towards law enforcement today by a lot of politicians. And he said a lot of this is a result of defame, defang, defund. Okay, you badmouth the police, you tell them they're the bad guys, and then you rally public opinion, and politicians they do that to gain popularity because it was very popular for quite a long time to say, oh, the police are bad, and get people behind you and say, yeah, the police are bad, and then you gain support for removing the powers of the police so that they can no longer do their job, defang. And
that's not true. That's not true.
I think it is true. I think it is
totally false.
But
because we give the
stage.
Police guy, we give him a bulletproof vest, we give him guns, we give him mace. He got more things than anybody back in the Wild Wild West, and we give him a good salary. Okay? The point is, we need officers who want to wear the shield with pride. That when they get up in the morning, like eating Captain Crunch, they're going after robbers. That's what they love to do. But the point is now that they act like it's just a job. Let me get my check. Let me get home. Oh, someone's making fun of me. Oh, no, I don't want to stereotype because I got a lot of police officers as friends, and they don't want to be stereotyped. But the bottom line, we need more officers who want to get up in the morning and chase criminals. Okay,
so I want to remind everyone.
I think
that's what they love to do.
Obviously, this is a hot button issue, and obviously, you can see my co-host is really up in arms about it, and I think that's important to show. But I also think it's important that we give the candidate a chance to answer the questions. I also think it's important that we don't bang the table because we have microphones, and when you bang the table, the listeners hear these bangs, and it doesn't come out. It doesn't come out, good in their ears if they're listening on their iPods or whatever. So I just want to make that recommendation: not to bang the table, bang your leg if you want to bang your leg. But let the candidate get a chance to answer the question, and then you can pounce on.
My bad.
No problem. But I just want to complete that thought that all these things set the stage for the facilitation of defunding the police. And it's well, they don't do anything anyways. So because we took away their powers, we defamed them. Now it's okay, now the public now thinks because they're not doing their job anyway, maybe because they're not allowed to do their job, then why are we paying them? Why do we even have them? Let's take away their money and put it to something else. The other thing I want to say too is I think you talked about community policing, like having police officers walk the beats. I totally agree with that. And here's why I agree with that. Because when you have a constant, I guess I could call it a platoon of police officers who walk the neighborhood, know the streets, know the individuals, they establish what's called a baseline of normal behavior. Okay? And I'll give you an example of lessons that we learned in Iraq and Afghanistan. Which I think actually kind of translate here as well.
Yeah.
So when Marines went out on patrols through towns in Afghanistan and Iraq, they went through towns if it was a crowded, busy, vibrant, people all around selling things, doing stuff, you might think that that was a dangerous situation because there's so many people around you. Okay. But in actuality, that was one of the more safer situations because if the locals felt safe being out, then you were probably safe being out. However, when there was nobody around, no people around, that's when things were bad because the locals knew something's going to happen. They know. And if you are in that situation where there's nobody around, then you might think it's safer because there's nobody around. In actuality, it's more dangerous. And this is why it's so critical that we have regular beat officers walking the streets and neighborhoods, getting to know all the shopkeepers, all the the kids, the neighbors, the residents, all the hooligans and all that stuff, because they know what's normal. They can establish a baseline, and then they can recognize deviations. And that's what we've lost. We've lost that because, of the end result of all this stuff that's happened over the last 5 to 10 years. Policing is bad. The police are your enemy. No, I don't think police officers are going out looking to arrest people if they can help it. They'd rather just say, okay, stop being a dummy, go on your way, don't do it again next time. That's the kind of policing I think everybody wants. However, because everything's become so hyper politicized and we've become so divided, nobody trusts each other anymore, the whole institution of policing, as it should be, is not tenable right now.
Yeah, and that's why actions are better than words, right?
Yeah.
And so the actions of the police officers can be simplified by one thing: always doing the right thing when they can.
And I agree with you.
And they can earn that respect back. And they need to stop listening to the media and what people are saying about them. If you get up in the morning and you're chasing criminals and you're doing the right thing, you're doing a great service.
Mm-hmm.
And if I had a chance, I would like to have you maybe go to more police commissions and maybe try to implement a strategy that the military use. Because I think that if we do need reform,
mm-hmm.
and we need a consultant that can reform the police and add drones and add other things where we can get the police back to being part of the community instead of hiding from the community and only showing up when things happen.
There's a couple issues about that. One is the police commission doesn't seem to be pro-police. And I'm going to show you a clip. And I want you guys' reaction to. I want both your reactions, especially Bob. I really want your reaction to it too, because this is something we talk about a lot.
Okay.
And this is the San Francisco Police Commission, and for you watching us on YouTube later, I'll put it up on the screen so you'll be able to watch it. But right now, I want you guys to watch this.
We're up to 647 deaths. This heavy-handed policing strategy would have some unintended impacts has actually played out, right?
I actually just have a question. I'm sorry, Commissioner Yanez. Were you saying that law enforcement is the reason why people who overdose? I must have
Ellen
spaced
Baradell.
out.
I hadn't planned on talking, but I'll follow up from this prior speaker here. And I think that's what we did here. We heard that as a result of escalating law enforcement, that we're finding more overdoses. I think that's what we heard up here. And this wasn't on the calendar. Nobody's here prepared to talk about that, nor are
A police commission meeting
Yes.
2 days ago, or on November 1st. And the police commissioner, Yanez, was saying that he was equating to people dying on the streets from opioid deaths is because of policing.
That's absolutely absurd.
It's the craziest thing I've ever heard in my life.
Well, but besides Commissioner Yanez's own, ethical, he's had some ethical questions. I think he was harboring somebody who was basically a criminal. His own ethics have been called into question with some very, very serious, charges that are not to be taken lightly. Here's one thing I don't think people realize is oftentimes when you have overdoses, the firefighters and EMTs and ambulances, the paramedics, are not always the first one on scene. A lot of times it's the actual police themselves. And they've Narcaned countless people, and you never hear about that. So to say that law enforcement is a reason why people are overdosing and dying is just, I mean, I'm sorry. I have to call into question his mental capacity.
Yeah, I disagree with his statement by far. I would say that, if he was trying to say that the access to drugs, then he didn't really clearly point out what he's talking about. And that's really the policing side of that. That's more undercover work. That's more, intelligence work and so forth, and really getting, exactly some of these big suppliers. But yeah, those are silly.
Now, the question I have two questions after watching that. One is, how come the mayor doesn't fire people like this? Because they're on a commission board. And the pattern is you have all these people on the commission. They won't let them pursue by foot. Mm-hmm. They won't let them pursue by car.
Yes.
We know crime is bad. I don't care what statistics they say. You can go out to any Walgreens and you'll see crime right there. You'll see it.
And it's not reported.
Okay. So why doesn't she fire these people?
But hold on, Sherman. You just mentioned something. You saying the police cannot pursue anyone by foot?
It's San Francisco Police Commission has said that they cannot pursue criminals by foot.
I think what you're referring to is DGO 5.25, if I remember correctly. And before a police officer can pursue somebody on foot, they have to go through a whole checklist of, indicators before they can initiate a foot pursuit. Same as a car pursuit. I think, if I remember correctly, if it's a property crime only, where no one's life is in danger, there's no threat to life, you cannot pursue also. So
if someone breaks into my house, they can't pursue? And they're walking down the street with my
unless they
stuff?
have, like, maybe they've kidnapped your wife or your kids. No, they can't pursue. That's the way I understand it.
Well, and we need to have a podcast on some of these laws.
We're going to have Chief Ford.
Silly.
We'll have Chief Ford on.
I mean, that's the silly.
He's going to come on.
Yeah. And if you are taking away tools for the police to enforce, then I'll have to take back some of my words, because that is absolutely silly.
I think this is the point that a lot of people miss is there's a frustration. Like, why doesn't the police do their job? How come they don't do their job? In a lot of cases, I don't think it's because they don't want to. It's more of the case of, what does a police commission allow them to do? And I'll give you one more example. And I know those people personally, by the way, who are speaking.
Okay.
And I may or may not have been at that police commission meeting. I've been to a few. The one that I for sure went to was the one that took place after the Dolores Street Hill bomb. Okay. And, naturally, a lot of people, activists, the media, a bunch of kids were arrested.
Now, for the people out there, what he's talking about, skateboarding, right?
Correct.
Explain.
It's more than just a skateboard.
Yeah, but explain a little bit, because not everybody knows. Not everybody's from San Francisco.
So every year around Halloween, and maybe some other holidays as well, there's a big event where skateboarders, they start at 20th Street, go down past, I think it's to 19th Street. And it's a nice steep hill. It's been popular for skateboarders for a very long time.
Dolores
Street, yes, on Dolores Street. And people gather up there, and they take over the intersection of 20th and Dolores, and they dive bomb down to 19th Street, and then that's what they do. It began as kind of a more or less a sanctioned event, sort of, earlier, but it's kind of morphed into something that's become a lot more nefarious. And I'll give you an example. I think it was either the last year or the year before, the Dolores Street Hill bomb event happened, and there was a couple of stabbings. There was people shot off like bottle rockets and fireworks onto the roofs of people that lived nearby, started fires. They took over a J streetcar, because the J goes right by there through Dolores Park. They graffitied it. They jumped on it. They also vandalized a couple of muni maintenance vehicles. So this was not just a benign little skate down Dolores Street. This is actually something that was quite destructive.
Okay.
And a lot of it was kids in their like mid-teens, later teens, or younger adults in their early 20s to mid-20s probably. And the police had to get called in, put a stop to the event, round them all up, and then, they were overwhelmed because there was, several hundred kids, maybe even 1,000 or more,
Wow.
and young adults that were rounded up. And, what was it portrayed in the media? Police arresting children,
Right.
Caging children. And that was not an accurate representation at all of what happened. I went to the police commission meeting and saw the play-by-play given by Chief Bill Scott, I think his name. Yeah, Bill Scott. And it was broken down by time. At this point, this happened. So we did this according to policy number whatever. It was a strict play-by-play to the minute, detailed general order cited, which allowed them to do whatever they had to do. And I thought, well, shoot, they probably exercised almost too much restraint. But that's not what was portrayed in a lot of the media, and a lot of, unfortunately, parents, and this is going to sound controversial, but I said it anyways, is a lot of parents need to raise their damn kids. And I hate to say this, I know it sounds heartless, but I gotta say it, is you can't let your kids do whatever the hell they want and then expect them that they're always going to be, innocent and a lot of kids did some very destructive things, but their parents, they don't want to think of their kids as being, the bad guys. All I know is if I had done something like that when I was a kid, my mom would have whipped my ass over that.
Right.
And, this is a bigger, I think it's a cultural issue ultimately. How do you fix it? I don't know. We can't really get to the bottom of that in this podcast. I think it's a much deeper discussion.
But when we're talking about the police commission, my question is, why doesn't the mayor fire these commissioners
got it. I'm sorry.
That are hamstringing and handcuffing our police officers?
I don't think she's allowed to. I think what it comes down to is we have a strong mayor system in San Francisco, or we used to. But that's been diluted over the last several years through actions which have gradually taken away the powers of the mayor to fire and hire commissioners at will and department heads at will.
So as a supervisor, what was the first thing you do to get us back on track?
We need to get back to that original system and give, I know people say, well, what about, you're giving the mayor more power. And I think we need to do that because the buck needs to stop with somebody. If the mayor has the ability to fire and hire people, and one of her appointments goes wrong, she can't point fingers and say, well, it's not my fault, I can't do anything about it. No, you can. You can hold the mayor accountable for the bad appointments that she makes.
Yes.
And if there's a commissioner that is not, unethical, like we've had John Hamasaki, who was former commissioner of the police commissioner, extremely unethical, and he was allowed to remain on the commission. He didn't seek reappointment. If he is not being eliminated or fired for cause, then the mayor needs to be held accountable.
Well,
for
Steve,
that.
I mean, saying when you're a supervisor and you're sitting with the other supervisors, what would you implement? Would you go back into files and pull up something so
We
that
need to get back
it
to
can be legislatively introduced again?
Yes,
and then
absolutely.
approved?
We need to change the charter so that the mayor gets some of her old powers back. The power to appoint commissioners and fire commissioners at will. The power to appoint department heads and fire them at will. We need to give him the power to do so. I think, and we need to change the charter. Now, this is not some easy task to do, but I think there is a lot of recognition of why this is becoming necessary. For example, Prop D, which is a proposal by, I think it's Together SF, to consolidate the commissions and give the mayor back some of her powers.
Hey, Sherman, don't you think we better get a couple more. Since he's in District 7, I noticed
Here's a District 7.
The
All right.
homelessness, right?
Well, let's get a District 7 Prop K.
Yes.
Let's watch Prop K, and we'll put it up on the screen for everybody. But we'll watch Prop K, and tell me what you think. This is
I've got a lot to say about this. This is my second most common question I get.
This is Myrna Melgar, who's the current.
I support Prop K. I was one of the supervisors who put it on the ballot. If the voters decide that it's not a good idea, then it will not happen. But if they do, which I hope they do, it is a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity to take a road that right now produces pollution and leave it for the next generation as a beautiful park. It also provides an opportunity for tremendous community economic development for the community. Right now, if you get on the Great Highway at Sloat, you cannot get off until you hit Lincoln. If you want to stop and get lunch at Java, you cannot. It is designed as a cut-through. It bypasses the entirety of the west side, and it is expensive to maintain because whether we like it or not, we are fighting against Mother Nature, and she usually wins. The Prop K language is very simple. It's just yes and no. All of the details of the when will be worked out in legislation, and there will be a process. Okay, thank you.
Thank you for your answers.
So first, I want everybody to know that we did not alter her voice in any way. That is how she speaks. And second, some of the things that she said in her soliloquy are absolutely wrong. Prop K does not say in its language that they're going to build a park.
Correct.
It has nothing to do with that. It's about closing the Great Highway.
So I want to address some of her claims. She said, it's a cut through. It's if you want to go to Java Beach and get a sandwich, you can't do so. Again, that's incorrect. Java Beach has two locations, one on Sloat and one on Judah. You can go to the one on Sloat. So that's an incorrect claim. And I'm surprised she doesn't know that because I know she's talked to the owner, Pat McGuire. I know the owner, Pat McGuire, quite well. And that is it just shows that she's not really familiar with the area.
So what's your opinion?
I'm no on K. Absolutely no on K. I want to address...
And why that?
Because I think it's, first of all, it provides, quite simply, traffic relief to the west side. We have Sunset Boulevard, we have 19th Avenue. People don't know that 19th Avenue is due for repaving here quite soon, so that's going to be taken out of commission for quite a while. There is a plan to put what's called a red carpet lane on 19th Avenue, which means a bus-only lane. So now you're reducing 19th Avenue, which is State Route 1, from 6 lanes down to 4. Okay, Sunset Boulevard, same thing. I think there's a plan to do the same thing for that as well. Put a bike lane in and a red carpet lane on Sunset Boulevard. You're taking 6 lanes going down to 4. If the Great Highway goes away, you're cutting the traffic capacity in half on the west side. When there's a weekend festival, traffic gets jammed up like you wouldn't believe. The one other thing I'll say, her claim that the pollution, the concern about pollution, here's the thing. Just because you close a road does not mean that those cars will disappear. They're going to go somewhere.
Tell them.
And between Sloat and Lincoln, there are 17 intersections from Sloat, Yorba, Wawona, the alphabet, all the way up to Lincoln. Every intersection presents a risk for collision. Intersections are the most dangerous, places for traffic accidents. The Great Highway, the Upper Great Highway, is grade separated. There's no intersections from Sloat to Lincoln. You can cruise along at a nice leisurely 35 mph from Sloat to Lincoln and vice versa. No pedestrians there's less there's no cross traffic. There's less pedestrians crossing. And you're taking all that traffic and taking it out of the neighborhood and into a safer location. On Sunset Boulevard, there are several schools that are around Sunset Boulevard. Robert Louis Stevenson, St. Ignatius, AP Giannini. There's a few others as well. kids are crossing Sunset Boulevard all the way. 19th Avenue, there's Herbert Hoover. They're crossing over 19th Avenue. You're going to take all that traffic from Great Highway and put it through the neighborhoods where kids are crossing. Give me a break. That's absurd.
And I agree. Keep the highway.
Yeah.
Keep the highway.
So
it'll be a nightmare.
Full disclosure, I've been working on the No on K campaign.
Mm-hmm.
I've done several speeches on it. It's one of the absolute dumbest proposals I've seen in the city. And we've had some doozies. San Francisco, let's be honest. We've had some doozies of proposals in our city. This one really takes the cake.
Yeah,
and the
you
reason
definitely
why
have a lot of
is because as a surfer, I've surfed San Francisco Ocean Beach since 1984. I'm a frequent visitor of Ocean Beach. I think I can speak for every surfer and everybody who lives out there. All that traffic, all it will do is just go into the neighborhoods. And instead of being able to traverse that area within 5 minutes, you'll take a half an hour. And all that pollution that they think is going to magically disappear, it's going to be worse because you're going to have to go through every stop sign and stop. And there's going to be more people on that street. There's going to be more traffic. There'll be more accidents because there's people in the neighborhood now, because there's no neighborhood where the Great Highway is. You just drive and you just go. Now you got people, you got pedestrians, you have kids that are having to go to the store. But now all these streets are packed with cars. So when there's packed with cars, what happens? There's more accidents. Now, what about the people who are elderly? How do they get by? They don't ride bikes. They're not walking. They have to go to the VA hospital. How do they get there? Mm-hmm. What about people who have to take their kids to school and then go back and go to work? How now they got to wake up another 45 minutes earlier? This is going to impact so many lives. Mm-hmm. And like candidate Pinto says, they're going to be closing 19th Avenue down. If they close the Great Highway and then 19th Avenue is closed down, you will see traffic like you've never seen before on Lincoln Avenue to get to 280, because that's going to be the only way you get the heck out of the Sunset. So what about all these people in the Sunset? That whole district will basically be ostracized from the city.
Mm-hmm. And Golden Gate Park will be filled with cars.
And you can't go through Golden Gate Park because it's closed to traffic. So people...
during the week, it'll be filled with cars.
If one candidate is for closing it, and she's the one who put it on the ballot, mm-hmm. and the other candidate is for common sense and for not only the elderly, not only the working class, not only the people who are working, not only the people who have to travel, is for common sense and keeping it open, it's pretty obvious who you should vote for.
Well, thank you. I appreciate that.
I'm
assuming you're talking about me. I'm assuming you're talking about me, but thank you.
Well, you're no on K, right?
Yes, I'm no on K.
I'm no on K too.
Yeah.
It's one of the dumbest things I've ever seen.
It's ridiculous.
Yeah.
Now we have a couple other segments, and we really want to get to the topic that everybody in the city wants to talk about, is the homeless issue.
Oh, this is my favorite topic.
And now there's 9 agencies that fund 200 nonprofit in city of San Francisco.
Could be more than that. But yeah.
For homelessness. There's over 1,000 people employed by the homeless industrial complex. Why would they fix it if all these people are employed by it?
They won't. And even Willie Brown has said this. He said in a CNN interview, which I was very surprised that CNN actually took the time to do this interview because it was very damning in a lot of ways, is he said that the homeless problem is not designed to be solved. It is designed to be perpetuated. And I think that's absolutely, regardless of your opinion of Willie Brown, whether you think he's corrupt or not, or a fix-it guy or whatever, he's 100% right on that. And we have a whole litany of nonprofits that nobody knows what they do. There's no accountability of services rendered, results of services, performance-based metrics. It's just basically a free cash grab. Tied into that is the harm reduction industry as well, which they had an argument when it was for clean needles, but those days are long gone. Now they're just handing out foil, tourniquets, supplies to use drugs with.
Plastic bags.
They turned into the drug dealer. And Willie Brown was the best mayor that we've had. He kept the city clean. He kept everyone in order. He did the right thing. And matter of fact, some people need to go back to Willie Brown School, so they know how to run a city.
Well, I've always said the man is still alive. And every time I see him, I say, why don't they ever listen to what you have to say?
I mean, if you need a mentor,
he's right there.
He's right there. Take him out to lunch.
I think he's
take him out to lunch. He loves Sam's.
I think he's living in the Leaning Tower of Pisa. I think he's living in the Leaning Tower of Pisa, aka the Millennium Tower. So, but I think he's absolutely right. I think there's a lack of coordination of services provided. Daniel Lurie has a plan to coordinate all.
But what's your plan? Think about what's going to be your plan when you're supervisor to clean up this homeless situation.
The first thing,
especially in your area with all those damn RVs.
The first thing, and I'll talk about that in a second, because I did some talking to them. The first thing we got to do is we got to shut down the open air drug markets. That is the number one thing that we can do right now to mitigate the homeless problem here in San Francisco today, because our homeless crisis is by and large a crisis of addiction and mental illness. Now, you have a lot of people who are saying, oh, it's just because they can't afford homes. No. If they can't afford homes, it's because they're addicted or mentally ill. It's not, that's not the root cause of it. I think by shutting down the open air drug markets, that'll be a giant first step to mitigating the homeless crisis here in San Francisco. And people, when I worked downtown at Station 36, I would talk to people who were homeless, addicted to drugs, and I would ask them, like, where are you from? Why are you here? And people would tell me, I'm here for the drugs.
Yeah.
And there's no punishment for that, because it's a drug holiday. And if you go downtown, maybe it's got a little bit better now. I haven't been down there in a bit. But if you go downtown to Civic Center, Mission and 6th Street, it's like an all-night drug festival every night. And it brings people here for the drugs.
That's still going on. And I'm gonna institute get a hot jalapeno for every time somebody hits the table. I don't really know why you guys are hitting the table. Most politicians, they talk with their hands in the air, but for some reason, everyone wants to beat up this table today, and it's a nice table.
Of scratches in it.
And
this is one thing that gets me fired up.
If there's any scratches in it, I'm not paying for it, and Bob's not paying for it.
Yeah. But this is one thing that really gets me fired up.
Steve, on your website, you talk about homelessness, and you want to be the supervisor. So
yes.
We just want to make sure that you're clear with your voters and your audience. Like, hey, it looks like you know some of the legislation. You see, what are you going with day one? What type of legislation can you bring forward to the supervisors and say, hey, we need to do this, and who would you support?
That's a good question.
End sanctuary city status protections for drug dealers and felons.
Okay.
Right there. That's
and
the number one thing.
And your voters know for a fact, when you get in, that's what you're going to do.
I think I've made that abundantly clear on numerous occasions.
Okay.
And here's the thing. I even spoke about this at a Board of Supervisors meeting. Matt Dorsey brought this legislation up to about a year and a half ago. And every, immigrants' right group, every progressive politician came down on him because they said it was cruel, it was heartless, it's not San Francisco values. Well, to me, San Francisco values is not letting people die in the street and holding drug dealers who are the biggest, killers of them all, go off scot-free. They're financing mansions back home, and this is not made. This is even the Chronicle said this. They're financing mansions back home in Honduras with the money that they're making hand over fist here in San Francisco. They've got Warriors paraphernalia, Giants, A's, Niners paraphernalia, because it's all like an homage to San Francisco for letting them make money, and killing people that live here.
Now, is there something in the sanctuary city legislation that says this adheres for criminals? I thought it was just for people who are being persecuted in their country. What does it have to do with criminals?
It began like that. And I think the sanctuary cities protection legislation was originally implemented in the 80s. But, as everything does, things that begin noble end up being corrupt. It's a creep. It's like a mission creep. So at first it protected, the kids of people who were, illegal immigrants, and then it drifted into, well, let's make it bigger and bigger and bigger. And before you know it, we're not allowed to cooperate with ICE, even for a lot of dealers and criminals, all under the guise of, protecting immigrants. Well, I think it's time to revisit that and bring a little common sense back to it. I think the public wants it. They're tired of it. I mean, we all know that a lot of the drug dealers are from Honduras. I speak Spanish. I've talked to them myself. Even our former DA, Chase Bodine, has said this. It's not a secret. It's not a secret.
It's not. It's the law of unintended consequences.
Yes.
You want to do
Well,
something right.
the cartel runs the Honduran.
They
brothers.
do. And
so
another question.
There's more layers to this. Do
you think Do you think some of the politicians in San Francisco are being corrupted and given money to let this go?
I have no evidence to say that they are, but I gotta wonder.
Because if you're a big cartel, I'm going to try, like if you're on the board, I'm going to try to slip you a couple thousand or a couple 10,000 just to say look the other way.
All I know is the longer we let this go unaddressed, the bolder and the more dangerous they're going to get until one day the tail wags the dog.
Well, it's dangerous already.
It is dangerous
Already.
already.
It's dangerous.
It's so out now. And I'll
Okay.
tell you one little quick story before we move into the next subject. Is we were on a call. I was on Engine 3, and we were on a call. And it was a Friday night, or it was a Saturday night. It was about 1:30 at night. And the guy pulled up in his Challenger, and he gives out the drugs. Mm-hmm. He pulls up in his Challenger. We're right there. We're right there. I mean, we're right there. And he opens up the trunk, and I'm looking right at him. He don't even pay me any attention. He gets out his little drop bags. He gives it to all the guys with their little scooters. Just gives it to him, gives it to him, gives it to him. Closes his trunk, gets in his car, drives off. He could care less that we were there. He could care less that the police was. He could care less. Mm-hmm. With impunity, and he knows no one's going to touch him.
And how far was the Eddie police station? That has more cars parked than ever.
The cops were with us on the call, B. The cops were with us on the call.
So, might be careful, because it seems like a lot of people got their hand in the cookie jar.
Yeah.
So you might want to be a little careful.
If I could pull a quote from Lebowski, that was done very big. The Big Lebowski is the dude says, you look for the people who benefit, and there you go. What he was trying to say is, who benefits and what do they have to gain? And look there. And
now, would you say if we could clean up this drug market, it would help out with the homelessness. It would help out with the robberies with small business. It would help out with the crime. Yeah. It would help out with so much if you could just fix that one issue.
Well, I'm going to say this. There's no one silver bullet to fix the homeless crisis. There is no one silver bullet. But I think a giant first step that we can do is to, like I said, break up the open-air drug markets. And the second thing is just to enforce the damn law. A civilized society does not let people crap in the street. Those are health hazards. A civilized society does not let people who have serious mental issues, do whatever they want because that's their right. This is not how a society should work. And unfortunately, we've kind of erred in our approach to this over the last several decades of it's their right. If they want to destroy themselves, who are we to judge them? War on drugs, bad. But the thing is, we're dealing with a game changer here. Fentanyl is not like your parents' boomer drugs. I'm assuming that you're Gen X, so maybe you have older brothers who are boomers. My parents were boomers. These aren't your parents' boomer drugs. These are quite different. We have fentanyl, which is as little as 2 milligrams is fatal. And now I'm sure there's more potent forms of fentanyl, which is even more fatal. And it's being spiked in other drugs, which are not like.
But it's probably synthetic now too.
Synthetic.
They got all sorts of stuff.
Yeah, and we really need to be deeply concerned and not approach this as like a war on drugs. This is killing people. 800 people died last year in San Francisco from overdoses, and not as many people died from COVID, even at our peak. So how come we freaked out more about? Now this is controversial to say this, but I'm going to say it because I think it needs to be said. Is we freaked out way more about COVID than we ever did about fentanyl, and fentanyl kills more people.
An FBI agent said when they were investigating the corruption in San Francisco City Hall, they said it made Chicago, which is known as one of the most corrupt cities in America, look like elementary school.
I believe it.
What would you do about the corruption in San Francisco?
Well, corruption hides in bureaucracy. And I think one of the biggest things we can do is downsize government radically. We have 130 different commissions. We have a litany of different departments. A lot of these commissions exist for almost no reason at all, other than to be gift appointments to political, for favors for people for supporting them. There's like I said, I alluded to it earlier, Prop D, which would downsize the number of commissions. I think it's a great first step. It doesn't go far enough. My belief is we should have no more than about 36 commissions, each of them no more than 7 commissioners each. We can get the job done with that. We existed a long time without all these commissions. We need to go back to those old days. And I got a little bit of heat for saying this, but I think it's true. If Elon Musk can downsize Twitter by, 70, 80%, and it still runs pretty good, we can downsize at least 30%. I'll say one more thing.
Well, remember, Steve is that's a publicly traded company.
No,
he's the CEO.
I totally get that. But
does this need voter approval to do this, or can
it has to be done?
Mayor situation, can you cut it?
I think we need to go to the voters for this, because if there's another rival proposition which forms a commission to downsize the commissions, they're gonna vacillate endlessly. They're gonna not do anything. Look, it's got to be voter mandate. Okay. It's the only way to do it.
Would you implement that? Would you?
I would absolutely support that. I would absolutely support that. Voter mandate. Give the government a marching order. You shall comply by the voter mandate. If you do not, we'll go from there. But we have to downsize. I'll say one more thing. So we have more government workers per capita than pretty much any other city in the country. Now, okay, I get it. We're a city county, or we're a consolidated city county, so we might have more than just like another city of similar size like San Jose. However, there are other city counties in the United States. Denver is a consolidated city county. Indianapolis is a consolidated city county. Philadelphia is a consolidated city county. Philadelphia is about 1.5 million people. It exists, city and county of Philadelphia. They do not have as many government employees as we do, and we're half their size. So if Philadelphia can get by with less, even though they're bigger, why can't we?
I agree.
And when you look at some of the salaries of some of these heads of these departments that shouldn't even be around, because they're duplication. Like, there's I don't know how many commissions on homelessness there are, and how many people. So we can get rid of a lot of fat.
We absolutely can. And
a lot.
Every department has fat, and I think we need to look at every department. We also need to prioritize our city services from most essential to least essential, and judge the merit based on that, and slate them each for elimination based on that. So, for example, what are the things that we as a city cannot exist without? We can't exist without infrastructure. We can't exist without public safety, and we need to pay our bills. We can't exist without those positions. So the highest priority positions should be positions that have to do with those things. What can we do without? Things like, non-profit grants, universal basic income, grants, other services which only serve a portion, not all of the community, the things that came probably later into existence. Those are the things that should be slated for elimination first. The things that should be kept, the most are the things we can't do without. It's kind of like when a body goes into shock.
Steve,
when your body goes into shock.
Let me ask you something.
Yes.
Not to interrupt, because we get enough to time here. And Sherman, I think since you're running for District 7, you had housing and small business, and that's what San Francisco. We're down here in the business district. We're seeing a lot of issues with business. Can you tell your new voters and your constituents what would you do to address housing and small business in your district?
Okay, so housing is extremely contentious. You have this YIMBY versus NIMBY argument. Like YIMBYs are like, let's upzone everything, let's Manhattanize all of San Francisco without regard to the neighborhood. I think that's a wrong approach. Do we have room for development in San Francisco and for growth? Absolutely we do. We can add units to Stonestown, to Park Merced, which is already slated for development. We can add housing there. We can grow in a way that respects the character of our community. However, when it comes to park neighborhoods, which are beautiful neighborhoods like St. Francis Woods, Forest Hill, Westwood Park, Balboa Terrace, Ingleside Terrace. These are beautiful park neighborhoods. Will I ever be able to afford to live there? Who knows? Can I enjoy them? Yes, I can. I can walk through there. I can enjoy the greenery. I think those are things that we are part of our heritage, our culture, that need to be preserved. But at the same time, we can add stories to buildings on West Portal, Ocean Avenue, Geneva. We can grow sensibly in a way that makes sense. We can fix our housing policy, our rent control policy, to allow for more affordable housing without even lifting a hammer. So again, I'm going to say something very controversial that a lot of people don't like to hear.
You like that?
You love it. But I think we got to look at rent control. I think it's being abused. I think it's called the golden handcuffs for a reason. I think rent control, every economist, whether you're liberal or a conservative, looks at rent control, and the evidence is quite clear. It leads to unaffordability in the long term. A lot of landlords are afraid to rent out their units because of the onerous rental laws. If we change, we don't even have to eliminate, but just change it to make it more, although ideally I think elimination would be the best course of action, but even just to change the laws a little bit to make it more favorable for landlords to rent out their units, you would see an increase of supply of available units overnight. And as we all know, more supply leads to lower costs. It's a simple economic,
All right. And how about small business?
Small businesses. Okay. Another thing about small businesses. So, depends where you go. But I think the one concern that people have about small businesses on the west side is accessibility in the form of parking. I've talked to merchants who, on West Portal, El Toreador, Maureen, who owns Easy Freezy, and the one thing they always say about is, I live and die by parking spaces. My customers need access, and the SFMTA is just like, well, we're going to take away parking spaces, and that this is our plan, and that's what it is. Accept it. And no, we need to be considerate about the businesses. We need to help them preserve accessibility. We need to help them with the I've talked to bar owners, for example, the bar Friends on Monterey. They have all these requirements they have to constantly abide by. They're shifting constantly. And then one inspector tells you one thing, another comes by and says, no, that's not right. You got to fix what the first one did. And, we got to straighten out and audit this whole permitting process for business owners. Okay. We need to treat them with respect, because small business is what makes San Francisco, part of the reason what makes us so great. Go to North Beach, West Portal, Glen Park. It's all those small businesses that make San Francisco what it is. But
I think there's a small business on Ocean Avenue that's been around since I think 1970, and they had when they made their business, they had a refrigeration unit, and it was approved back in the 70s.
Yeah.
Just recently, I saw an article or somebody on the internet talking about it, where some inspectors come back to them and said that they have to remove that and put it somewhere else. Now, they already have the plans that said, well, back in 1970, they said it's okay. And I find that every time the city is losing money or it goes and it takes it from the small businesses, that's wrong.
Absolutely wrong. Absolutely wrong. So I think an audit we should have like an experiment where we have a fictional small business that wants to open, and we put it through the approval process to see what does it actually take to open up a small business. Where are the choke points? Where are the roadblocks? And remove those roadblocks. There was a ice cream / bar that wanted to open up somewhere. I think it was North Beach, or maybe it was Valencia Street. I don't remember where. They want a pretty good idea, pretty revolutionary idea. You can have a beer, you can have ice cream, whatever you want. Should be great, right? We should want things like that. However, the city couldn't figure out, is this a bar or is this an ice cream shop? How do we permit it? And they kind of fought over each other. The owners spent $200K in permitting and rent and everything, and they couldn't get it open. They gave up. They walked away. Now you go to a place like Texas, I spent a little bit of time in College Station, attending some firefighting classes. They have a place where it's a laundromat and a bar. No big deal. You want to do it, you do it.
I've always said that you should be able to open up your business, and then they come, like you should have a general plan on the internet. Like, this is generally what we need. You do it, and then they come in after the business is open and say, hey, maybe fix this, maybe fix that. But get the business open, get people employed, get the tax revenue in, and let's get small businesses open back in the city. Because you can go all around any neighborhood, and there's all these for sale signs, all these for lease signs, because this city is anti-small business. I don't care what you say. The facts are the facts. It's hard to run a small business in this city. It's hard to get people employed. So stop all these nonsense. Stop it, and let's open up San Francisco.
I agree. And my question to you, what's your viewpoint on these vendors in the street taking away business from small restaurants?
It's bad. It should not be allowed.
Implement, and close that down immediately.
Yes. And here's the thing: is people say, "Oh, it's just people trying to make ends meet in our difficult economy." However, they're bypassing the law. We have laws for a reason. It's to provide for safety for the customer. And I'm hearing reports of meats being sold, food products, shoplifted items. They're being sold on 16th and Mission and 24th and Mission. This all bypasses the legitimate business industry, and it hurts people who are playing by the rules. It does. We have rules for a reason. Let's abide by the rules. Let's shut down these street vendors. That's not the way you want to open up a business, do it legitimately.
And as supervisor, would you bring that to the floor?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah.
I think let's move on to our pop culture segment. And I think on the issues, what would you say, B? I mean, he's pretty straightforward, pretty common sense on these issues. Would you vote for him? You're District 7? You're not, but if you would.
Well, I'm not in District 7. And,
what do you think?
As a person, I think he is a native of San Francisco, so he has a lot of qualities. I need to get to know a little bit more, but based upon his contenders, he looks like he should be able to walk in and sit down at that seat.
At the table.
Yeah.
Well, here's the thing: is like no one's ever going to agree with me 100%, and that's I tell people, like, if you agree with me 50% of the time, that's great. If you agree with me 75% of the time, that's even better. But if you agree with me 100% of the time, you should probably have your head examined. Because, look, I have ideas, and I know that some of them might be a little bit out there. But here's the thing: is I'll always be straightforward with you. Like my whole philosophy is leadership by principles. You know, I have my firm principles that I try to lead by. That's not to say I won't compromise, because I will. I have to. But I'm not going to tell you one thing and then tell somebody else something completely different. Like, I am what I am, and
that's all that I am.
And I've had some pretty contentious interviews and debates because I'm the same person in front of the SF Republican Party that I am in front of the Harvey Milk LGBTQ Club, and they said some pretty horrible things about me to my face. I said, hey, this is what I am. I'm not lying to you. This is who I am. And I have good reason to believe this. So you can sit there and call me whatever name you want to, but I'm not changing my mind just because, you think what you think,
Well, one thing I like is a lot of politicians pander to the audience that they're at. They'll say anything to get elected. They'll say one thing to this group. They'll say something totally opposite to this group. They'll say something totally out of left field to that group. And you are very consistent. And for all the people out there, we're not going to have time for these next segments because we're running out of time. But for all the people out there, I want you to go to Stephen Martin-Pinto for Supervisor, District 7 Supervisor. Check out all his website and what his thoughts are on all these issues. As you can see, he's a very stand-up gentleman, and he fought for our country. He's a firefighter in our city. And if I don't live in District 7, but if I did live in District 7, I could say without a shadow of a doubt I would vote for this man. Because not only that from what I've heard, but I know him personally, and he says what he means, and he means what he said. And with all these other politicians, they'll tell you whatever they have to say to get elected, but this man's going to stand by his conviction, and he's going to do the best thing he can to make San Francisco great again. Thank you all for joining myself and Bobby and candidate Stephen Martin-Pinto, and like always, what's up?